This is MC's Voice, reading from nydailynews.com, an article entitled, "Why Are Some Ultra-Orthodox Jews Flouting Social Distancing Rules?" by Orit Avishai, Ayala Fader, and Leah Tarragon-Zeller on April 8, 2020. As people all over the world began to shelter in place in an effort to control the spread of COVID-19, some ultra-Orthodox Jews defiantly refused to follow social distancing regulations. They continued to attend large weddings, yeshivas stayed open long after public schools closed, and thousands gathered for funerals well into April. Ultra-Orthodox leaders promised that boys' Torah study, prayer, and women's heightened modesty would keep everyone safe. But by the end of March, the epidemiological disaster was undeniable. There were significant clusters of infections in ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods, and the sick were flooding already strained healthcare facilities. Only then did rabbinic leadership acknowledge the threat was real.
But what took them so long? But what took them so long? But what took them so long?
As social scientists who study Jewish orthodoxy in Israel and the United States, we know that there are theological, cultural, and political reasons that the ultra-Orthodox rejected social distancing rules. And we need to help others understand because we're all in this together. Social distancing disrupts the very essence of Orthodox Judaism. At the heart of ultra-Orthodox life are religious obligations performed face-to-face with other Jews. Prayer, boys' Torah study, and women's ritual immersion cannot be moved over to Zoom. Even more, when yeshivas are closed and when men can't pray together, the very work of spiritually repairing the world ceases. One ultra-Orthodox man who was stopped by police from going into a secret prayer group shouted,
"Do you expect us to stop living? Do you expect us to stop living? Do you expect us to stop living?"
The ultra-Orthodox do not always share their fellow citizens' visions for civil society. Inheritors of the collective memory of the trauma of the Holocaust, they prioritize theological frameworks over democratic ones. Tolerance, cooperation, and pluralism take a back seat to Jewish exceptionalism. During times of crisis, religious leadership does not necessarily look to secular authorities for guidance. Rather, they ask their followers to engage in communal prayer and shore up religious observance. Recent anti-Semitic attacks on both sides of the Atlantic have heightened the feeling that their way of life is embattled. In the U.S., acceptance of alternative medicine, along with the science-suspicious politics of the Trump administration, which some ultra-Orthodox support, is creating unexpected alliances. Just last year, measles epidemics in New York and Israel were traced to a small group of ultra-Orthodox who had been influenced by the wider transnational anti-vaccine movement. Ultra-Orthodox leadership also worried that sheltering in place was impractical for their communities. These families have 6 children on average and typically limit digital media in their homes. The Satmar Rebbe of Kiryas Yoel stated,
"There's no room at home, so they'll wander around in the streets, so nothing would be accomplished anyway."
Let us be very clear. Ultra-Orthodox Jews are hardly the only group to facilitate the spread of the virus. 1/3 of infections in Sacramento County have been linked to church attendance, and pastors in the southeastern U.S. continue to defy shutdown, citing the protective power of prayer. And it's not just religious groups. Are those spring breaking on Florida beaches, hanging out in bars, skiing in the Alps, or taking global cruises any less complicit? What are the ethics of mutual responsibility in a pandemic? If, as novelist Arundhati Roy writes, the pandemic could be a portal to a new world, we will have to bring all of our human differences with us as we imagine uncharted ways to live together. It's our only hope of survival. Avishai is a professor of sociology at Fordham University, Rose Hill. Fader is a professor of anthropology at Fordham University Lincoln Center. Tarragon-Zeller is a postdoctoral fellow at Technion and Wolf Institute, University of Cambridge. And this is MC's Voice. Thank you for listening.